Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And today on the show, I get to introduce you to the fabulous Brandon Beachum. Brandon is the host of the Positive Head podcast, which is consistently ranked in the top 5 spirituality podcasts worldwide on iTunes. In an effort to regularly elevate his listeners' vibrations, he passionately explores the ultimate nature of reality and conducts interviews and discussions with some of the world's foremost consciousness change makers 5 days a week. In fact, Brandon interviewed me on his episode 499, and I'm delighted to share him with you on our episode number 206. You can find out more about Brandon and listen to his amazing podcast by visiting his website, which is positivehead.com. Brandon Beachum, a warm, warm welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to connect with you again, and to be on the other side of the mic here is nice as well.
Yeah, it really is cool. We had such a great conversation when I was on your show, and then I just wished everybody
Absolutely.
I know could listen to it. So I think this is the best way to get to interview the interviewer, because you're a big deal in the world of podcasts.
Well, I'm a big deal in my mother's eyes for sure.
Aww.
And and yeah, it is. It's such a great thing to flip the coin, so to speak. We all play so many roles in our lives of, sometimes we're the parent or student, sometimes we're the teacher, sometimes we're the parent, sometimes we're the child, and so it's great to just wear different hats and kind of do things slightly differently from time to time.
Yeah. Well, what I found, and I know it holds true with you, is you found something you're passionate about, and you so freely give and have these great, amazing interviews with people that really enlighten and inspire people, and people can't help but share them, because I've listened to several of yours, and they're so inspiring. They make me look at my life, and so I don't know. I think naturally things grow like that, and it's no wonder you're consistently up in the top 5 of podcasts. I mean, it's really well done, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. And congratulations to you on all the success of your show as well. And of course, why I wanted to reach out to you. I love what you're doing. I love this topic that is your theme. And it's one of my very favorites. And so, when I first came across your show, I was like, oh, I've got to reach out and get you on my show. And, and I think you touch on something interesting, saying, the success comes from really being in alignment with your higher purpose and what your soul set out to do, I would say. And I feel like I've definitely found that to some degree with doing, I do an interview once a week, and then 4 days, those are released on Wednesdays, and then 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, it's just me, taking a question from the audience or whatever's bubbling up in my own life that I feel like is a theme of something that would be good to talk about. And that I think is really resonating with a lot of people, because it gives them something to latch on to. As I like to put it, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. It's one thing to sort of understand a lot of these concepts, but really rewiring our neural networks and really, swimming in the vibrational pool, so to speak, of, that which we want to see more of. And so, I do it first and foremost because I need it, and definitely a student first and teacher second, but in a way where I'm sort of sharing that with the world simultaneously. And that seems to be really connecting. And I love that, helping anyone in their journey is the most rewarding thing. I'm sure you'd agree that you can experience.
No doubt. I was just thinking, I saw Mike Dooley do his presentation once, and he was talking about our GPS in our car. And it's so great, when people can dream about visiting places, and then they can, put it into their GPS in their car. But the one thing they need to do is take action, like actually start driving. And I think so often people get inspired, but what you do is you get people to take action, daily action in their lives, and that's what makes a difference. So it's not about just having the dream, it's about fulfilling the dream. So that's why I think not a bad thing for people to visit positivehead.com and start listening. But anyways, let's
Anyway,
talk a little bit about you. Before we get into talking about life after death, one of your favorite topics, just give us a little
definitely.
of your backstory. Where do you coming
Sure,
from
sure.
this evening? Well, we're recording this on
Yep.
an evening, but
Yep.
yeah, where's home for you?
Where's home? Well, currently home is in Costa Mesa, California, Orange County, just about 45 minutes outside of LA towards San Diego. I was born and raised in Virginia. So I sort of slowly made my way across country, went to college in Tennessee, and then just sort of slowly made my way, across country. When I was in college, I formed a band, and I sort of had one of those moments where I really started having my own spiritual awakening. I was raised very conservative Christian. I went to a Christian college. I was a little too much for them, and they very politely asked me to leave at one point for
Wow.
doing things that I really shouldn't have done. I mean, it was, it's a very strict school, and, I got caught with having my girlfriend in my room is
Oh
the main
my.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, what a crazy, crazy kid I was. And so, so I ended up leaving there, and about that time I had an experience with someone who was an intuitive, who demonstrated some psychic ability to me,
Hmm.
and I was just fascinated by what I was seeing. It was such a fascinating thing to behold, and so that really got me opened up to exploring some of these concepts, and I started reading a lot of things. I started my one of the first books that I read was all about out of body experiences, which isn't so far removed from near death experiences and things like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
And I remember distinctly telling my brother what I was reading about, and he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, still very much under the influence of what we had been born and raised to sort of believe is the nature of reality and what was going on, and things like that. And so me coming to him and saying someone could have an out of body experience or astral projection, was just crazy. He's like, what have you been smoking? And I told him basically, well, here's the thing. A lot of people are claiming, we were never taught. How come we were never taught about this? Thousands of people claiming similar type experiences. And so, one of the ways people would talk about doing it was through meditation, inducing an out of body experience. The other is through lucid dreaming.
Right.
And from there, he said, well, you sound a little crazy to me, Brandon, but this lucid dreaming you're talking about, thing, which, becoming aware in your dream that you're sleeping, knowing that
Hmm.
you're actually lying there in bed. And for those who aren't familiar, most probably are listening to this, but he said that I can resonate with. I did that as a child. So anyway, by talking about it and bringing this whole idea up, and I was like, well, great. If it ever happens to you again, say you want to leave your body and, buckle up your seatbelt according to all these accounts I'm reading. And sure enough, just by talking about it, it triggered it happening to him again. So he goes from one
Wow.
day kind of making fun of me for believing that this is possible to the next day looking like he's seen a ghost, because in his dream state, he became lucid, remembered our talk, said, okay, I want to leave my body, had the experience of leaving his body, standing outside of his body, looking at himself lying there, moving his hand in front of his face and seeing, energy trails, and basically having an experience that, as he put it, was as real and vivid as our normal waking reality.
Yes.
And so it was a really interesting thing for me to first kind of open up to this stuff, start exploring, have someone very close to me who I know wasn't, sort of BSing me, and was definitely a sort of a non-believer up until this moment.
Hmm.
And so that sort of opened me up. And, from there, as I continued to read more, it was just, all I can guess is it's, it being a big part of what my life path is. The information just resonated so deeply, and some of these ideas about, pertaining to the ultimate nature of reality and the oneness of all things. And, some of these concepts, they just started really resonating. And from there, I got very passionate to talk about it. And I would talk to anyone who would listen about it, and people would either look at me like, "Okay, you're
You're
crazy,"
crazy.
or that's very interesting, and go about their daily life. And so I was an island for many, many years. But as I'm sure has happened to you, I started having some very interesting experiences as I had my own awakening, and certainly getting some glimpses into who and what a role I would step into, and knowing that at some point this would, feeling very deeply, as did many others I would read about, that there would be an awakening that happened. This would become more common knowledge. And I'm really watching that take place now. And as I've sort of stepped into a role helping to facilitate others, expanding their awareness and consciousness and mind simultaneously, it's I went from years and years and years of, like I said, kind of like an island talking about this stuff and passionate about it, to now I have friends and make new friends all the time. I'm connecting with people like yourself and other amazing consciousness change makers who all are like, on the same wavelength. And so it truly has been just a wonderful journey up to this point. And that kind of brings you to where I am now. And, I've been a serial entrepreneur most of my life, and had some very interesting experiences with manifestation and, creating successful company that was, setting the intention to manifest something that ended up, one of the Inc magazine is one of the fastest growing private companies in the US. And, having the hero's journey of then losing it and bouncing back, and all the things that come with, getting your sea legs in 3D reality. I've definitely had my fair share.
Yes,
it's a roller coaster. Yep. And so that's sort of where I'm at now. The show is a big passion, and I have entrepreneurial ventures that I'm involved with that I'm very excited about, and a lot of the future looks quite bright, and the journey has been a beautiful one. And that's really the biggest thing, is learning the path is the goal. The journey, as someone who's such a doer, and some people maybe struggle with the execution of projects and things. I've been the type of person who's maybe worked very hard on rearranging 3D reality and to fit what I want. And now as wisdom, I feel like I'm getting, wiser with each passing day, hopefully, and year and month. And I'm learning to, and this year especially, I feel like moving into a state of getting into the flow more, and less trying to rearrange external circumstances. Because once you understand there is no out there, it's all a reflection of your internal state. You are, it's almost like I have a geocentric view of reality, as in we're all the center of our own private universe. And I'm a reflection in your movie, and you're the lead director, actress, all of it. And I'm a reflection of your consciousness, and vice versa. And I'm in my own private universe, where it's, everything I'm seeing and everything I'm bumping up against is a reflection in some way. It's, everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself. When you start playing with some of these concepts and ideas, I always tell people, just be open-minded, listen to some of the concepts, apply them for yourself, and, see for yourself. Because once you do, you start realizing how powerful we truly all are.
Oh, and we certainly are. I was having a bad day a couple days ago. Some unforeseen things happened that I had to deal with that I was not happy about. And then it hit me, right? In just 1 second, like I could choose to be victim, or I could choose, like, I created all of this for me to grow. And so it was so interesting, because I threw away the hat of victim, and I just went into, like, I'm responsible. So standing in responsibility, what did I choose to do? I pulled the emotions out of it, do what I needed to do with integrity, and, like, made things happen, and they happened really fast. Like, great things happened out of it. But it all depends on how we look at it, So these
it's
are good
everything.
tools.
Perspective is everything. And if you can understand that the lump of coal is always a diamond in disguise, and you approach it from that, it's like, why, instead of this is happening to me, why is this happening for me? Is the question. Why is this happening for me? And also understanding it's not only happening for you, it's happening through you. And when you can bring that awareness to your challenges, you have a whole different trajectory. in in how they play out from that point forward. If you see it as a lump of coal and you beat the drum of it's a lump of coal, guess what? It's going to continue to be a lump of coal. If you bring that perspective, why is this happening for me? I'm here to sort of, and what we find is those challenges, those fears, those negative, quote unquote, negative experiences, there's always a gift hiding beneath them when we move through them in this fashion. And it becomes an amazing thing to carry with you into any and all experiences and challenges. And we all know 3D is full of them, right? So,
oh gosh, yeah. Before we go too far down this rabbit hole that I know we're going to go down, the ultimate nature of reality.
Take you down it.
We can
I'll
go.
take you there quickly.
Yeah, that's no problem. But I want to just as the title of my show is We Don't Die, I'd love to hear from you, just some of your beliefs. And maybe, I know you've interviewed people about, you've had some great guests on, including Dr. Eben Alexander and many others. But can I ask you your thoughts about the afterlife and why you believe that we don't die?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, it's such a fascinating topic to me. Speaking of, I think of my brother who I referenced a minute ago. He is like obsessed with this topic. So I told him about your show after our interview. I was like, you got to check it out because he is just fascinated with this particular topic. And I as well. And, Dr. Alexander was one of my favorite guests. What a fascinating insight. And he's been on your show as well, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So, for me, it's like I said, at the end of the day, when I have applied some of the concepts about the ultimate nature of reality and seen for myself and gotten the feedback that I've received and had created the abundance and the success and the health and overcome challenges and all the things from, firsthand application, it has really led to the same story over and over and over again. And that is we're eternal beings. We're not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes.
There is so much evidence of, people having recollections of past life experiences, or, the way I view it is it's, past is sort of relative to this dimension because there's no time, I would say. So if there's no time, it's all happening now. We're in the eternal now. So we're just currently tuned in to the moment that is you and I recording this interview, right? And so my 5th birthday party is happening, on another channel somewhere. I'm eating Incredible Hulk cake. I can still remember. And so it's just a matter of tuning into, so even what we would view as past and, Earth timeline, the 1700s, let's say, it's actually just happening on another channel that is, in linear time in the past. But ultimately it's all happening in the eternal now. And so for me, it's sort of like the math adds up on everything else that I believe, and then you take all the evidence, and there's so much of it. And of course, we're not hearing it on the nightly news. No. We're not seeing it it's not being taught in the school system. I mean, it's very obvious when you look at the system that we've been indoctrinated in. It's none of this stuff is. Maybe in the East, you've heard more of it, some of these ideas of reincarnation and that sort of thing. But there's just such an overwhelming amount of evidence when you look at it. And so, I don't know if that's the best answer, but really that is my answer from just for really. And I think all of it comes down to faith to some degree for everyone at some level. Once you really explore, and at the end of the day, I think that's all any of us have is what, we can look to teachers. Like there's so many wonderful teachers and other people's stories and accounts, but you really at the end of the day have to examine what is my own inner guidance telling me, what is my own, and then you have the people who've had those firsthand near-death experiences and so forth. I have not, but I don't feel like I need to either. It feels so like matter of fact to me that this is how things work. And of course, once you can relax about I heard someone talking about it recently, death and the whole concept of death. And they're like, hold on, you mean I'm going to cross over and merge with all that is, become more powerful, have more recollection, and experience infinite love. And I'm supposed to be fearful of this? Like, it really takes away the sting. Death is to be born to this dimension. I believe there's a certain mini death to where we came from. Vice versa, when we leave this dimension, there's a mini death to this 3D experience, right? But at the end of the day, the ultimate is no death, just different, once again, varying perspectives on it's sort of a sliding scale of how source. I say it's God, we're God-godding. This is how God experiences herself, by individuating, giving herself amnesia, forgetting who and what it really is, so that this can mean something. And then, let's slip in more awareness and then see how that changes the experience. And that's what I think we're all having here. It's like, as more awareness slips in, it changes the quality of the experience that we have. We could look back to maybe our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, where there was no maybe awareness of, some of these spiritual concepts. And as a result, that experience that they lived out was a different one. Yes. And it's all equally valid. It's just different vantage points. When you have eternity and there is no time, you want to experience it all, I would say.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you too is, we spoke about this a little bit before I started recording, is, we hear, and if you're a listener of this show, and so many people have written me, Brandon, that have listened to all 205 so far. This is 206. When you hear enough of these stories, and like I've studied almost 20 years of these stories of the afterlife, plus 200 hours of talking to people, so I believe. Okay, great. So what do I do with this information? How, there comes a point where it's like, okay, I believe I'm an eternal soul. I believe my loved ones are still around, but then what is my life for? So I love that we're talking, and I'm ready to take your hand and go down the rabbit hole and talk about whatever we're going to talk about, because I want to empower, you, me, whoever's listening right now, our listener, grateful that you're here too, to live the best life today, live the best life till we close our eyes that final time on planet Earth.
Right. No, and that is the $1 million question, right? Mm-hmm. Well, okay, now I know. I'm one with the source that creates and animates all things. I'm floating in eternity. There is no time. What do we do with it? Mm-hmm. And how do I act next? And one of the greatest things I think for people to understand is first off, that once you get that, it's like, I can relax. There's nowhere you have to be. No. There's nothing that you have to do. You are perfectly imperfect. This is all by design. I don't believe there's ever been a mistake in all of eternity. And that's tough for some people. And I understand that. But that is truly, I believe we're always getting a reflection of a vibration that we've previously offered. So if you want to know what you'll see tomorrow, look at what you felt today. So there's nothing you have to do, nowhere you have to go. No one's waiting to judge you. There is balancing, because anything I do to someone else, I'm doing to an extension of self, because the consciousness that animates my form is the same consciousness that animates your form, I would say. The separation between us is an elaborate illusion. And so hence the idea of karma, and, it's just balance. It's like you're always doing it to self. So what do you do with this? What do you do with this knowledge? How do I act next? Well, first off, you can understand and take and own the empowering idea that you are it. You are one with the source that creates and animates all things. And that is so empowering, because so many people feel cut off and disempowered. And how do I move next? How do I create the circumstance in my life that I want to see? And they don't realize how it all starts from within, because it's all everything, like I said before, there is no out there. That's all showing up in your movie, your circumstances, your relationships, your job. It's all showing up as a reflection of a vibration that you've previously offered. I said, I'm going to be very wealthy. I'm going to create a successful business. And I was living on my friend's couch, but I believed it enough, where I put enough energy into that idea, where I manifested a company in an industry I never foresaw myself in, but things aligned aligned and I followed the breadcrumbs, if you will. And it led to, achieving what 1 in 10,000 entrepreneurs do, ending up as one of the fastest growing companies in the country and all these things. And I did that not because I'm smarter or better than anyone. I did that because I started remembering how empowered I am. And that's really what I'm here to share with everyone is if I can do it, you can do it. And I'm just using that as one example. I mean, a job or career is just one small aspect of who and what we are, right? And so the best way I put it, Sandra, is if you think about it like this. So time is an illusion, right? If you shoot me into outer space, bring me back a day later, I'm a day older, and you've been dead 100 years or whatever it is.
That's
People
right.
have seen the movie Interstellar. That's based off real science. Wow. When they're on that planet and the wave hits them, and 5 minutes passes there and 20 years on our planet. That's all based off real science. So we know Einstein proved, that this is a true concept. Time is illusory. So. And so you understand that he also said, our whole reality is illusory, albeit a very persistent illusion. And so once you understand that time is illusion, now where does people, then it kind of freaks people out. People are like, well, okay, so I have no free will because it's all already happened, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting from my perspective. I say our life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. And what do I mean by that? Well,
Yes.
Source, God, higher self, whatever your soul, whatever you want to call all these different lenses, the sliding scale we view through. You slide up the scale at some point and look through it all being one. And a lot of people have had those experiences during near-death experiences or using plant medicines or meditation or holotropic breath work where they merge with it all. All they've done is slide back up the scale from whence they came, right? Now you slide back into the 3D avatar that is Brandon or Sandra or the listener. And so what is the choices there? If it's already happened, well, where can I choose? Well, what I would say is Source, higher self, God plays out every potential you can think of and those you can't. It's infinite. It plays out, it has eternity and unlimited resources and abundance and, no time. What is it going to do? It does everything. So, I think back to my first experience when I mentioned sort of my initial awakening, and a lot of that was triggered meeting someone who was intuitive. Then I actually decided after meeting someone who's intuitive, I'd get a psychic reading, right? I was very intrigued by that. So I sat down in front of this woman randomly, just decided to go one day. And she said, "Oh, I see you in a cold place like Chicago working in business." Now, I was in Atlanta, Georgia. She was in like a mall or something. And I was shocked that this woman just called out what my plan was after college. I was going to go work for my uncle who had a consulting firm in Chicago in business. She called it out and I didn't tell her anything about it.
Wow.
Then she said, but there's this whole other path for you in California in music. Well, little did I know and what ended up happening. And, she asked me if I was involved with music. I said, no, not really, but I love it. Well, a year later, especially as I went further down this rabbit hole of if I could do and be anything and it's all an extension of self and I have unlimited abundance at my disposal, what would I call in? What would I create? Oh, I'd love to make music. So I formed a band. Then I met someone from California who said, oh my gosh, you got to have your music in California. Me and the band ended up visiting out here. We loved it. We moved. So what was she seeing when I was sitting in front of her in that moment? Well, someone with intuitive gifts, and we all have them, of course. But some people are born to be Michael Jordan and some can make a basket from time to time, right? And then there's others that work out the muscle really hard and get better at it, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, she was good. And so she had tapped into the potential Brandons based off of the moment in time I was sitting in front of her. So based off of that moment, what two paths was I resonating most closely with that she perceived through her, her intuitive abilities? And so she saw these two paths and both of them were very, one was actually more pertinent in my vibration at that moment. The other came, maybe a year later that I made that decision to, form a band and go this whole other path. So this is what's wonderful is, your life plays out at the corner of free will and destiny. It's all already happened because there's no time. So it's destined, but free will in the aspect of you get to choose which version of you want to experience. What I would say is, you want to experience the greatest and grandest version, the one that's the most rewarding, right?
Yes.
Well, the good news is you've been there, done that, and already got the T-shirt. So, because there's no time, right? So our whole job becomes your number one job is to manage your vibration. You be it to see it. You get in. Most people do something like work in order to have something like money, in order to be something like happy. Well, it's actually works in reverse. You be it. Be happy. You'll find yourself doing and having the things that make you happy more and more, right? As one example. So you get into the vibrational pool, if you will, start swimming in the vibrational pool of what you want to see more of. And this is what calls it into your reality. This is how you play with higher self. This is the game it wants to play with you. You meet it halfway by getting into vibrational alignment, practicing. Small rituals are great ways to give energy to things. You think of, we think back to witchcraft or any of those things. What were they doing? They're just drumming up energy for stuff, right? It's law of attraction. It's like, where attention goes, energy flows. And so we can do the same kind of thing, any kind of ritual. Spending, it's why I do the show 5 days a week. It's a daily conscious effort to drum up the vibration of what I want more of. And talking about this stuff for me is the best way. Right now, I'm in a vibrational state that's different than when we started because I'm resonating with a certain frequency. And we know, of course, that we're all people who would ever look at this from a scientific perspective. We're all vibration. Like the particles that make me up are 99.99999% space. When we zoom in, they're actually not solid at all. They're vibrations popping in and out of existence, mind you. And so fast, they're flickering like a movie does, right? You're popping and flickering so quickly it appears solid, but really it's all a light show, and you are the creator of that light show. So the question becomes, what movie, what version of you do you want to watch next on the screen that is your life?
I love this because, I feel that we all have this inner critic, this voice, this God, can be so often nasty and negative, trying to say, no, we've got to be able to see it and hear it and touch it and smell it and taste it for it to be real. And to do any kind of research, I love the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? But when it talks about things to our tiniest particle, all we are is vibrating energy. It took a little itty bitty camera and put it into one of our atoms that's making up one of our cells, it would not be able to film anything. There'd be nothing there, just vibrating energy. Right. So anyone who's listening right now, because this happens to me all the time, is my mind starts thinking, oh, now come on, this seems far out. Well, I think it's designed that way, that we are not always 24/7 supposed to remember who we are, because would the game be worth playing?
Right. I think that's a great point, and it's one that really, a lot of times people will have sort of their own awakening, and have a lot of times they get into that heightened vibrational state as their awareness is expanding, and by getting into that heightened vibrational state, they're getting, they'll then call in experiences that are, magical experiences or synchronistic experiences, yes, or paranormal experiences and things like that. And then what happens is sort of the ebb and flow of 3D reality. And, what happens is it's a spiral, right? So we sort of, we get high on this information in a sense, but then, our vibration starts to lower again. And this is sort of a natural ebb and flow. But it's sort of like if you look at a stock chart or something like that, you may see it going, up, down, up, down, up, down. But over time, if it's a healthy company, right, it may be up, down, up, down, up, down. But over time, it's going up, right?
Right.
Slowly going up. And so same thing with us, I would say your reality, your experience is a spiral. So don't resent when things sort of start coming back down to earth and your vibration gets lowered. A lot of times then we've got to be careful with is once we become aware of all this stuff, then we start, if we ever have those down moments, we start beating ourselves up. Oh, I'm being negative. I should know better. Well, what does that do, right?
Nothing.
What you resist persists.
Yes.
It makes you worse, and it keeps you, once you understand the process of being human and more of how it works. This is part of it. The part of it is you're going to have tremendous ups. You're going to be brought back down to earth sometimes. You're gonna head back up again. You're gonna be brought back down to earth sometimes. But trust and love the process, and this allows you to move through those valleys. And the more gracefully you move through a valley, the higher the next peak that comes, I would say.
Well, and I think some of those valleys and even some of the most gut-wrenching, terrible, horrific times of grief and sadness, I can't help but look back on some of the worst times in my life that caused the best things in my life to happen.
Yep. Beautiful, beautiful point. Yeah. It's like I was saying earlier, that the lump of coal is a diamond in disguise.
Yeah.
All of you, there's always a gift waiting behind the challenge or the fear or the trial, whatever it is. And when you can bring that awareness to your experience, you know now, what do you know? If all of this is correct, you know that you're an eternal being that's always been and always will be. Change is guaranteed. Yeah. The challenges are blessings in disguise. And, what do you really have to stress about then? There's nothing you have to do, nowhere you have to go. The reason Source is doing this is because it can. And it's a way for, I would say, for God to know herself, right? Because if it's all love and it's all one, which it is from the ultimate perspective, I would say, but that becomes meaningless if there's no context, no contrast, right? So you need to have one of my favorite books, Sandra, is a book by Neil Donald Walsh. Called The Little Soul in the Sun. Most people who hear that name,
I have that book. Yeah.
It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he wrote Conversations with God, which is amazing. And one of the first books that I read that really helped open me up. And, but The Little Soul in the Sun is so beautiful because it really explains the human condition in the way a child can understand. And we're all, let's face it, we're all sort of children on this journey into the greater mysteries and the cosmos and eternity, and it's all like we're like babes in the woods, right? So I feel like it really resonates, and I recommend anyone to read it, whether you have children or not, especially if you have children, read it to them because it will give them the perspective, and just to sum it up, there's a little light, all these lights make up the sun, and they're all perfect and beautiful and divine and equally brilliant. And one day, one of the curious lights wants to have a different kind of experience than perfection. It wants to experience forgiveness, the idea of forgiveness, which is completely foreign because who to forgive in this perfect kingdom? Right. And so he starts this conversation with the sun, which all the lights make up the sun. And the sun being sort of the God figure, right? The collective merged together. And this interesting conversation arises between this little light and the sun. And the sun says, you always were the adventuresome one. I knew you'd come up with this one day. And I have the way for you to do it. I have the method for you to do it. I'll put you in this on the stage and, this created construct, but it will require one of your fellow lights to basically lower their vibration so much that they forget who and what they are in order to do something for you to forgive. And another light steps forward and says, I love you so much, I'm willing to do this thing. I'm willing to lower my vibration, forget this place, forget who and what I am, so that I can convincingly do this bad thing to you so that you have the opportunity to forgive. And all I ask in that moment is that you remember me for who and what I am here, because I will have lost myself in this process. And I think it's, and that's me summarizing the story. It's much more eloquently written in the book, but it's such a beautiful, it's one of those books that brings a tear to almost everyone's eye I've ever shown it to, because I think it resonates with the core of what's going on here. Speaking of Eben Alexander, he said one of the things he learned on the other sides, those people who challenge you the most, who are the villains in your story oftentimes, are part of your soul family, and those that you're the closest to, that are playing a role and have actually suffered to play that role so that you can have the experience of forgiveness. And, I have someone in my life I think of who, I have a lot of synchronicity around my birthday, and Very interesting story around that. And this person, his child's mother has my birthday. His grandmother has my birthday. This person that did a big betrayal in my life. And so it was, for me, it brings awareness. He may not remember. He may be lost in the illusion, but I remember who and what he truly is. And I believe that this is actually happening for me, not to me. And then now as a result, I can see the benefit of that trial by taking on this perspective. And it has, it just changes everything when you can bring this awareness as to what's playing out, the dramas that are playing out on the world stage all across the board.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm just thinking of, my mind is flashing to people past and present and people that have wronged me and all that, but just that they've got that spark, that light, and they did me a favor, and it's so easy to go down victim mode or to go, hey, wait a minute. Thank you. Thank you for teaching me that about myself. Thank you for whatever, that's really neat.
Yeah. And you really upgrade yourself in this. It's like you pass the tests, you pass tests where, you get this challenge, you take the high road, you do the most loving, my favorite quote, Sandra, John Lennon, love is the answer. Love is the answer. Now, what was the question? And I love it because it truly is. It may sound like a bumper sticker or cliche, but it's so true. What would love do now? How do I bring as much love and perspective to this experience, to this challenging experience as I can? And by doing that, everyone, you will literally just sort of rip through the challenges that are queued up for you. And what's on the other side of those? A gift, a present. You expand into the next greatest and greatest version of yourself, where you allow more good in, allow more abundance. And it's and you couldn't have that experience without the challenges. So it's absolutely
that is
wonderful.
The simplest thing ever. Love is the answer.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, it couldn't get more simple, I don't think. Doing it, different story. But
look. Yep, exactly. And that's the thing. It's one thing to know all this stuff, and it's another thing to apply it and to just continue to. And it's literally the reason I always say it on my show. The reason I started the podcast is like, I need this. We teach best what we most need to learn, I believe. And so, I need this first and foremost. So by drumming up the vibration, what am I doing? I've heard these things before, but I couldn't wait to be on your show to talk about them again.
Yeah.
Why? For the benefit of the listeners and myself, because I'm just burning this into my soul. It's literally, as you talked about, what the bleep do we know? It shows you the science of how your neural network is being rewired based off of these beliefs. One of my other guests and favorite guests, Dr. Bruce Lipton, the biology of
you
belief.
talked to him. Cool.
Yeah, he is so cool. I highly recommend you guys to go check out his book, or if you want a quicker download of his wisdom, especially those of you who are scientifically slanted, check out on YouTube, if you search Biology of Belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton. It's about an hour talk. He's standing up on stage and he literally just shows the science of how your beliefs create your reality. And when you tie in some of these ideas to science, it's covered from all bases.
Oh, and for our listener, just beneath this episode in the description, I will have the link to that Biology of Belief. So, and the link to Little Soul in the Sun and everything else. What the bleep do we know? All these great things. Because I'm the same way, Brandon. I can't have a bad day and then call you to record a podcast and still have a crappy day. It's like, wait a minute. There's a little reminder who I am, what my life's for, and it feels good.
It does. And when you understand that is what we're all here to help each other do, it's like there's nothing there. I believe you'll always find a lot of people are looking for their life purpose and are even concerned about those things. If you can relax about it, I can give you one hint. It will involve service in some way, because why? You get what you receive. Why? Because there are no others. So whatever you're giving, so it'll always involve service in some way. because you're always giving to self. And there's so really from the highest perspective, there are no selfless acts. There are no selfless acts in a very good way. It's the good kind of selfish. So your highest calling is going to involve service in some way, and it will always come right on time. Your job is to manage your vibration, not go out there and try and force something to happen. One of my favorite teachers, Osho, says, don't just do something, sit there. And what is he getting at? He's getting at quit trying to rearrange 3D reality with all your actions. Get yourself in the right vibrational state, then take action or follow the breadcrumbs or turn over rocks and listen to your intuition as you feel compelled. And this is how the game becomes, I've heard it said, Sandra, and I believe there's probably some truth to it, that it's notorious on the other side, how it's a well-known thing, how difficult souls or oversouls or higher self, whatever you want to call it, how challenging it can be linking up with its human, right? And so they're in alignment. And that's really our job on this end, is to get into vibrational alignment with higher self. And how do we get into vibrational alignment with higher self? Well, we bring on the perspective that higher self has. It's what is God or higher self or source? How does it look at challenges? The same way I believe that we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm viewing them from this sort of perspective, I'm bringing all these perspectives to my experiences. I'm in alignment with higher self. So now it's communicating, we're merging, it's becoming me and I'm becoming it. Now there's a clearer channel of communication. It's much easier for it to nudge me and say, oh, I feel compelled. You need to go to this event. There's something there for you. Whatever. We don't need to now try and figure it all out with our limited perspective, our limited mind. Instead, we start working with a higher intelligence that is seeing the whole chessboard and all the moves 10 steps ahead that you could never see. So it's where you get into alignment with this, and it just makes your life move into a state of flow instead of a state of force.
I love that you said that Osho quote. I've never heard that before. Don't do something, sit there.
Yeah. Isn't it great?
It's fantastic because, we're like the little hamsters on the wheel. You just keep moving, but we're not getting anywhere, but when we can stop, that's when we can get in touch with our higher self. That's when we can look at life through the eyes of God or the universe. That's when we can try on love is the answer, but now here's this demon that I think we have all met at one time or another. That demon is fear. What do you have to say about fear?
False emotions appearing real. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise, right? So here's what I think about fear. I think fear is this might come as a shock, a great gift. So it is what's hiding behind fear. Well, anyone who's been listening probably knows what I'm going to say, a gift. So it's there waiting. It's, I think back to a friend who told me, actually he was on my show a long time ago. He produces an event called Lucidity Festival. And I go to a lot of transformational festivals that are sort of a lot of music and art and workshops and sort of Burning Man-esque. And so this is kind of in that vein of festival, and so many beautiful souls and spiritual seekers and gathering together. And so he produces a wonderful event in Santa Barbara, California called Lucidity Festival. And interesting enough, of course, he has a lot of lucid dreams, and he's actually one of my first interviews, if you go back into my archives. But he told me the story of how he would dream all the time of these archetypes, the old hag, kind of character, and it would this would be a fearful repeating dream. And then it started happening very frequently, like a wolf character in his dream, and he would see this wolf, and it would gnarling teeth and drool, and like a werewolf, so more than a regular wolf, just super struck his heart with fear, and it would come racing at him in the dream, and he would wake up out of terror. And after this dream repeated over years, one time in his dream, and of course someone who has a lot of lucid dreams, he's seeing this wolf, and here it comes running at him, and this time he decides he's going to face the wolf. He's going to face the fear, right? And the wolf, it comes, it charges him, it gets to him, and they just basically embrace one another. And he
Oh,
starts, the wolf then starts dancing with him. And as he's like, it's like drooling and on his shoulder as they're dancing, and he's laughing because really it was a farce. It was a big farce. It was just there as, and beyond that was he had this celebration and reconnection with his fear. And so a lot of times your fears are just, we're eternal beings that have been journeying on this incredible, trajectory through, what I believe we sort of signed up for, at some point. We said, okay, we're gonna play the 3D game. We're gonna play the physical reality game, and that game spans over lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And here's the tools. Think of it like a video game. I'm going into the game. Here's the tools I start with, and here's where I win it, right?
right.
And we're somewhere in that process of a game that God wanted to play, right? And so, and along the way, we've picked up all kinds of residual energy and experiences that lead to fear. And sometimes it may be a fear from your childhood that's coming back. Sometimes it may be a fear of something that happened in a previous life, and you can't quite understand why you have this fear. But one thing that's been shown, even speaking of life beyond, this life, I'm sure you've read some of the books. What are they? Is Many Lives, Many Masters one?
Yes, Brian Weiss.
Where it shows, people who go and they have these, I think that's the book. I might be confusing it with another, where people have these fears and phobias and things that they can't get over, and conventional medicine has tried to deal with and to no avail. Then they go back and under regression, and they remember the life where they drowned at 35 years old, and they live through that and then release that fear of it happening again, and then the phobia disappears.
Right.
So it's, I think we've picked up a lot of things in our journey in 3D, in this life and beyond, and when we can understand that they're truly, is the very famous saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, right?
Right.
And you can approach forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. I believe we're going to ultimately have to face them. Otherwise, they're going to just keep coming back around in different forms. But when you can trust, and you can put trust into source, and you can trust that you're going to make it through and you're going to come out the other side, even if you lost your physical life, it's okay. You can't ultimately lose, and you can move into that trust and face your fears from that state of knowing you're going to find a great gift is there waiting for you on the other side. So that's sort of my 2 cents on that topic.
Oh, I like it. And who doesn't like a gift?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
I saw a license plate earlier that I smiled at, and maybe it was for this purpose. Maybe it was a synchronicity leading up to this moment, because it hit me as funny, and it was like, that's an interesting license plate, and now it really has relevance. The license plate was always Christmas, so it's always Christmas. There's always a gift in every day, and that becomes really the challenge and gift in when you can bring that awareness to the present moment, even the mundane tasks, maybe that aren't instilling fear, but even worse than fear, mediocrity and mundane, my job is, this low vibration thing that I'm drudging through. Well, if you bring, you be it to see it, right? You want to see more, you want more excitement, you want a more exciting job. Guess what? The way to get to where you're want to go next is through where you're at now. You're perfectly where you need to be to get to the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. So you bring that excitement, you bring that vibration, that energy, you find the joy in the little things, because I'll tell you this, every moment is as divine as any other moment ever has been or will be. Our job becomes to find the beauty in those moments, even those mundane moments. And then things come alive and things you didn't notice before. And by doing this, this is how you move through and actually call in more easily viewable, exciting experiences.
Oh, I love it. I love the be it to see it. It's another simple thing, but doing it. An example, I had just a ton of paperwork that I had to do yesterday, and I was procrastinating like you wouldn't believe. And So I just started playing this little game. Like, I'm just going to do one little thing. And I was happy about that one little thing. Well, one little thing led to two little things. And then all of a sudden, it must have been my vibration raised because in the last 2 days, I've accomplished so many things that I have been putting off for months, but like super fast. So,
That's funny you bring that up.
yeah,
I
how'd
just
that
did an
happen?
episode with, I just did an episode with, where I shared a clip, which I'll do from time to time. One of my favorite teachers is Esther Hicks, or Abraham, if you're familiar. And I just love the wisdom that she shares, that they share. And she called it the Swiss cheese experiment, where if you have all these things where you're very overwhelmed with what you have to do, punch a hole in a paper, make it Swiss cheese and lots of holes, and then write the little tasks over each one, and then just kind of go over each one of them after you've laid them out and kind of do a vibrational check, right? Which one do you feel like you could do? You've broken it into bite-sized pieces, and which one feels like it's easy to do? Oh, as you kind of are scanning over them,
Hmm.
all the possible tasks you could do, and you've broken them into much easier bite-sized chunks. Oh, this one seems easy. I can do this. And you do it. Now, like you said, then you go on and you do the next one. Maybe then, maybe later. But what is interesting, once you have that little win, you vibrationally think about it. Anytime you finish, anything, it's like that seems like daunting. You start it beforehand. I think of homework as a child. It's like it was much worse, the anticipation of doing the homework, than actually doing it. And then when I was on the other side, you feel this great, you feel this rush of satisfaction and
Yes.
accomplishment. So if you make it instead of saying I've got this big task, and then you're telling your brain, your chemistry, your vibration that you're only going to feel good if you complete this giant task, you make it lots of little wins that you feel that same rush, vibrationally speaking. And so it's kind of like a hack to sort of help you to be incented to continue down the path, because it starts feeling good. And then, once something is in motion in a particular direction, it's more easy for it to continue in that direction.
Oh, and I also had the experience that like somebody was helping me along with it. There's a book, I can't remember the author, but it's God will work with you, but not for you. So like if we take a few steps in the right direction, it almost felt like I was being lifted and helped, and like I can go to bed tonight, Brandon, feeling just this huge sense of accomplishment. Even something that I'd put off for like 2 years, I got done. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
proud of me.
wonderful.
Yeah, so we only have a few minutes
Yeah.
left, my dear. Not that we have to rush, but I
Wow,
want
that
to
went
be
fast.
mindful of time. Yeah, doesn't it though? But well, first of all, a little plug for your show. I mean, this has just been a great conversation for me. And you have, oh my God, 500 hours of episodes, something like that. You've got quite a bit. So much good things about, uh, just really thought-provoking things on Positive Head Podcast. So I really recommend people visit positivehead.com. Go get to know Brandon and get more of this. But with the last few minutes, what would you like to share that you haven't, or is there something you're passionate about that, oh, I did never mention this, or the floor is yours, my dear.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All
Well,
right.
if I could get anything across to the listeners here today, is to first say congratulations for for making it to this point in your own evolution. The fact that you're tuning in out of all the things that are coming at you, bombarding you for your attention, all the fearful programming. I mean, you can go and watch, you don't have to go far. Go to the nightly news. There's so much stuff coming at you that you can focus on.
Right.
And what I would tell you, congratulations to making it to this point where you're curious enough and you care enough about your own vibration, whether you consciously are aware of this or not, that you're feeding yourself with this sort of information that Sandra's putting out to the world, and that I'm so lucky to be able to share that experience with her today. It's a huge accomplishment. Oftentimes we're so hard on ourselves for what we should or shouldn't have done. And to make it here is huge, not only for yourself, but for the collective, for the world. So, when you understand that, so you're helping the collective just by managing your own vibration in this way. And for that, you deserve a big, big applause. And I want to just really say congrats to all of you for making it to this point, and to also go easy on yourself on a go forward. This is, the path is the goal. Right?
Yeah.
Every moment is as divine as any other moment. So there's nowhere you have to get. There's nothing that source is perfectly imperfect. It's perfect right where you are. So relax about, you'll never get it all done anyway. Right? Wherever accomplishments you make, you'll open up into a new plateau of opportunity, and source is infinite. So you'll never get it done. The journey is the goal. Relax into your life a little bit more. Relax about all the judgment and self-judgment. You've done an amazing thing to make it to this point. You're not only helping those in your immediate vicinity, you're helping everyone vibrationally, because as you grow, the collective grows. So that is really the biggest thing that I would say. And just remember, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed by your circumstances, the good news is you, and only you, have the power to change it. And that comes from within, from managing your vibration. If you want to know what you'll see tomorrow, look at what you're resonating with today. And if you can start practicing things to lift your vibration and manage your vibration, whether tuning into this podcast, another podcast, reading a book, watching Esther Hicks, as I talked about, whatever it may be, these things, it's like soul food for, it's soul food, right? And so managing your vibration, making small choices. Don't say, I've got to have the perfect diet or the perfect body, and if I'm not there, I'm a loser. Small wins. I'm going to make one small thing today. Start tracking when you do those things, focusing your energy in a way where you give yourself that rush of accomplishment and appreciation. Because one of the biggest obstacles, Sandra, I believe, is people beating themselves up, right? They get on this path, and then it's like, I should be doing better, and I'm comparing myself to him or her. And you know what? You're your own unique emanation of source on its own unique trajectory back to merging with your source from where you came. So relax into it. Give yourself a break. You can take a deep breath. There's nowhere you've got to go. You get to go and do all kinds of things, but you don't got to do anything. And just being you is enough. That would be my last little tidbit to leave you with.
Oh, it's so beautiful and juicy. And we are so hard on ourselves, aren't we? I think it's part of our dynamic to look at what's undone. But take a piece of paper and write down all your successes. Take a piece of paper, write down all the things you're grateful for. Those could be some things about raising your vibrations. Oh, Brandon, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Such a pleasure. It's such an honor to connect with you and your listeners. And I look forward to connecting in 3D at some point.
Oh,
I'm sure it'll happen.
Heck yeah.
It'll happen. And I definitely look forward to it. And certainly, having you back on the show at some point as well. And thank you for all that you do. And for letting me share that experience with you today.
Oh, and ditto to you. And again, I know I'm a fan of Brandon's, but I've got a whole bunch of episodes to catch up on of positivehead.com. Go to Positive Head Podcast, and there's a reason it's one of the top podcasts in the world right now, because it's just so great. And it all starts with you. And so I thank you. Really thank you, Brandon.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm so happy. And for our listeners... Oh, did I interrupt you?
No, I was going to say much love to you and all the listeners.
I'm feeling it. Love is the answer. But for our listener, thank you for taking the time to listen. And as always, you can go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and check out all the past couple hundred episodes. Be empowered. It does make a difference to be able to tune in to something, and it'll make you feel better. It'll raise your vibration. It'll put you on a good track for the day. Don't feed into that mind that can be so tough on ourselves, really, truly. And I also want to remind everyone that we have a Facebook group now now, which is We Don't Die Listeners. You can simply type that into Facebook and find us. And it's just a community that we can talk about all this stuff. And so I would love to see you there. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I've been your host on We Don't Die Radio, and I too believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. So really want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.